Welcome back to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. This is going to be a special episode that focuses on the topic of funerals. It's your first funeral or the first one you've attended in a really long time. We're going to talk about what no one tells you about attending a funeral, but they should. We're going to talk about the mindset that you should have, the idea that it's about your presence and not performance, and why less is more when it comes to attending a funeral. Glad you're here on this special episode of the Hearse Chaser podcast show. See you in a second.
You're listening to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Here's your host, Stephen McClellan.
All right, welcome back to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. As an estate planning, probate, and elder law attorney, I've attended quite a few funerals, and each one of them is unique, and my relationship with the family and the decedent has been all over the place, sometimes very close, sometimes not very close at all. And in each case, the attendance is to show respect. And each memorial service has a different feel about it, depending on the family and the person's life. And what I wanted to do was put together some tips that I think will help, some mindset things to think about when it comes to proper etiquette. And it can feel very unfamiliar, especially for me, I think, when it comes to the emotional element of the funeral and the grieving and the stories. I don't think I've been to many without crying. I think it's just something that happens. You can't hear the story, and you can hear the love, and it's so raw, and it's unlike anything that you'll ever see. It's a lot of it's very unscripted, and the people who are presiding, in many cases, they are often speaking from the heart, and it's one of the purest forms of communication. And so before we talk about the tips that we have over 10 tips. I love this quote from Washington Irving. He said, "There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are messengers of overwhelming grief and an unspeakable love." And there have been moments, and there may be moments when you attend a funeral that there are no words spoken. It may be music. It may be a speaker just trying to get out the words, and you just feel with them. And that's a big part of what funerals are, is to feel with people and to be there with them. So the first thing is, who should attend a funeral? And many folks want to pay their respects. Many, you don't typically get an invitation. Today it seems that the newspaper, while it was probably the most common and quickest way to reach out to people today, it's probably social media. It's important to respect the family's wishes. Many families will have private services. I found this to be more true with some of my older clients, where they'll have maybe just visitation and then a graveside. So make sure that you check with someone close to the family, not the direct descendants. And of course, the funeral home can be a good resource as well to ask them about those things. Most of those things you can find on the obituary. And if you don't know, it's very easy to type the person's name, obituary, and the state, and it will typically pull up that person's obituary. Oftentimes, there are a number of religious activities and thoughts. And I think the best way to think about your role, if you are not a religious person or not of that religion, is to be respectful in a quiet presence. That's enough. You don't have to object to anything religious. This is not the place to do that. If you feel comfortable, you can observe what others are doing and follow their lead. Oftentimes, it's a very important part of the healing process, and oftentimes you'll hear things about faith, culture, Bible verses. There will be prayers, and it's. I don't think it's much to ask to bow your head with everyone else, and so, but it's not the time to make any type of opinions about someone's religion. The third thing to talk about is what to wear at a funeral. Sometimes they may have a dress code. They may say, we want you to wear certain things, a color, for example, or wear a hat. And those would absolutely be acceptable. But generally speaking, you're looking for muted colors. We're talking about black. We're talking about navy, gray are also acceptable. But if you don't know, just go with black. The idea is that you do not want people to leave talking about what you wear. That's probably just a good mantra in life. You want to blend in and not be the center of attention, not wear something that is distracting to that moment. And if you've been to funerals, you probably are already thinking of times that has actually happened, or even in other events. This is not the time to do that. Conservative here is the best way to think about that. Also think about the weather and whether you're going to be inside or outside. I like to be as cool as possible. Wearing suits can be very hot, and if you're wearing one of those suits in the hot August of Arkansas, it'll be very humid. So you might want to be mindful of kind of how many layers that you have on, or maybe you have a suit jacket but take it off for a graveside. That's very important. Now here's a challenging thing is you want to be respectful, and many times you want to bring your family along, and children can add an element of complexity to things. If you have children, I've had to go to funerals with children. And when it was family, we kind of had to sit in the front. But otherwise, if we were attending, it was best to sit near an exit so we could get out quicker. With 3 kids, high probability that they're not going to understand fully and appreciate the context of things and get really restless pretty quick. Sometimes funerals can be 30, 45 minutes. They can be an hour and sometimes longer. And our children have a hard time sitting, and it's not uncommon to maybe bring someone that can help, or maybe a babysitter if appropriate. Most families understand that kids may be a distraction here. You might want to have them on a shorter leash than maybe in other circumstances. Like in church, it doesn't bother me one bit. If kids are fussing and crying, it doesn't bother me because I've been there, and it doesn't bother me one bit. But I think I would have a shorter leash on them, related to being a distraction in that situation. I mean, that's a unique one-time event. When should you arrive? Try to give yourself at least 10, 20 minutes ahead of time. Because 1, you're probably going to someplace you've never been before. 2, you don't know about the traffic. 3rd, I'll never forget this. I went to a funeral. Had I shown up like 5 minutes early, I would not have been blasted by rain that fell. And it fell like 5 minutes before, and I got drenched. Everybody else inside was totally dry. It's like, oh, must be raining now. So you can give yourself a little bit of extra time. It also gives you time to fill out the guest book. There may be a line, and that allows you to grab a seat without disrupting the service. Again, here, if you arrive early, you've got some more options than being the person who comes at the last minute or comes late. That can be very, very distracting. If you have questions, especially at a funeral, you take your cues from the people in front of you, and you might want to ask questions to the funeral director. They're very nice to answer questions. If you've not been there, not familiar, a lot of times there can be more than one funeral going on. And so in those cases, they do a really good job of telling you which room to go to. If you are, sometimes they'll have visitations and then the funeral memorial service following. That's kind of common. If you intend just to come to the visitation, which is before, I'd come at the earliest point in time to do that, not towards the end of visitation. That might bleed into the memorial service time. I see that more common maybe with older families. This was, when my grandparents passed, they were in their 90s, and so everybody there, they had nobody older than them, right? Everybody and their colleagues there was nobody their same age, and so most of the people who were there had some connection to them, and there might not be a lot of people for many reasons, and if that's the case, knowing that the visitation, you might want to come early and then leave after that. Where to sit? Now, here's a tip for you. Sometimes at the end, you want to start with the end in mind here, and sometimes the funeral, they will dismiss the back rows first. And what you don't want to be, if you're a back row person, like I love to be in the back row, but if you're in the back row, they may call you first. And if you're sitting on the end, you might be the very first person who is dismissed. And sometimes the very first person that's dismissed, they're the first one to greet the family on the way out. Or they may have a pass by the casket for the last respects. And I've always thought, don't sit in the back. The first few rows, if they're the family, you don't want to sit right behind the family because they might dismiss that row. So somewhere in the middle and not on the ends. I like other people to be the guinea pigs so I can watch and see what feels appropriate. And certainly you don't want to be the first person there.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Our mission is to be your first choice for last wishes. Want to dive deeper? Join us over at the Hearse Chaser Academy, where we've created 8 on-demand courses for each stage of life. From young adulthood to retirement, navigating separation or blended families, and everything in between, we help you plan for the future, no matter where you're at. Now stay with us as the ride continues on the Hearse Chaser podcast show.
What to bring? You'd be surprised, but it's definitely nice to bring tissues. You don't have to bring a box, but those nice little pocket tissues, great to bring. I don't really think you need to bring anything else. You don't need to bring a sympathy card. Weather appropriate things like an umbrella. Didn't have an umbrella that day, which would have been really smart to do. What to bring? Make sure you've eaten before you've arrived. There's nothing worse than being in one of the quietest rooms you ever will be in and have your stomach growling. Important to make sure you do that. Very important. Behavior during the service. Turn your phones off. Don't even bring your phone in. Nobody is that important to have their phone go off. That is just not something that you want to happen. And even if it happened, it's just going to catch you so off guard. It's going to take you longer to turn off your phone than normal. So it's just best to leave that in the car. It's probably good practice in life not to have the phone with you all the time. Be careful about casual conversation inside. If you're not a great small talker, this is not the place to practice. Okay, this is not a networking event. This is not, you have to talk to the person beside you. Sometimes when you go to church, they kind of encourage you, get to know the people around you. If you don't know them, shake their hand. You don't have to do that here. I'm giving you permission to sit down casually. Generally, nobody is going to get to learn somebody new at a funeral. That's not really the purpose of it. You don't want to drink or eat during the service. There is likely, sometimes there's hymns. You can participate in the prayers and hymns if you feel comfortable. But if this is your first time singing a hymn or church, you can be as quiet as you need to be. You don't have to, carry that alto line because you're not hearing it maybe as loud as you have in other venues. So that is possible. I know, like, my grandfather passed. They had a lot of singing, a whole lot of singing. I think they sang 6 songs or so. I was not really in the mood to sing. That's something that if I had a funeral, I would rather just play music. I don't want to sing. And there weren't as many people there either. So I think some people would find it encouraging. I would be just as encouraged to see the song play on a screen or something. That I thought, that was more in line with what they would have wanted, singing a lot of songs because they like that. Me, I'm just not, singing is not my greatest thing. Listen intently to the speakers, to the reading, very important. Number 9, I'm on to 9 here, is showing emotion. It's natural to feel emotion. It oftentimes, the speakers and the things that they say, you may have emotions about a person that you never thought that you would. It's very solemn. It's very eye-opening. And there's no shame in having emotion. And I've oftentimes you have no control over it. The tears just start happening, and that's why it's great to have those tissues on hand. No one is going to judge you with your emotion. Okay, if you have emotion, I think it's part of the grieving process. Only maybe in some rare circumstances would the grieving maybe just a little bit too much for the situation. If there was wailing and that sort of thing, might not be something you might want to consider that. Number 10. This is important because offering condolences, finding the right words. Here, less is more. However you play out in your head what you want to say, it just never comes out the right way in those moments. I've had thoughts, and I've just fumbled them. And so simple here. If you don't know what to say, I'm just sorry for your loss. This is especially true as you're going and meeting the family. It's very difficult to know. Well, I know some of these people, but I don't know all these people. It's just simple to say, I'm very sorry for your loss. If people are giving hugs and you feel comfortable, you can give hugs, handshakes, those kind of things. Here's what you don't want to say. So you can say, I'm sorry for your loss. He or she will be missed. Okay. You're in my thoughts. I think you're in my thoughts, I think is fine. You don't want to say they're in a better place. Okay, that's not what anybody wants to hear. You have to think of everything that comes out of your mouth. It could be interpreted the worst possible way. Okay, so I think if you say something that might be dismissive of someone's, grief, they might say, that's not a better place. A better place is with me. So, make your gestures, kind, again here, less is more. So oftentimes from the perspective of the family, many times they don't have the ability to process everything. They're not going to remember anything that was said. A grieving spouse will not remember anything that was said. But they will remember seeing your presence. So that's why it's important to worry about just your presence and not performance, not the things that you say. And sometimes saying less is actually a gift to the family. Because the more you say, if you ask them questions, they have already had decision fatigue with a million things, so you don't have to ask them anything. So it's okay simply say, I'm sorry for your loss, or they'll be missed. Now, And kind of lastly, do not take photos. I think this has to be said. If no one's told you, don't take photos. That's really not your place to do. That can be highly disrespectful. I know today that there's services that are streamed. I just don't think that's the right place. You want to be discreet about the service. We talked about leaving. Make sure that you gather everything up before you stand up and go. You don't want to leave something behind. And if someone says flowers are a big thing. This is typically you want to send flowers ahead of time. You don't want to bring flowers the day of. And some people say they don't want flowers. They want things donated. That's totally fine as well. I have a different opinion. My personal opinion, I want as many flowers as possible. I don't even, that might be selfish, but I remember the most beautiful thing. I'll never forget this. When my wife's grandmother passed, they took the flowers, all the flowers, the beautiful flowers, and we went to lunch and we came back and they had laid all the flowers on top of her grave. So instead of it being the dirt, it was the most beautiful. I had never seen that before, and I thought that was the most beautiful thing to see all those flowers. If you feel the need to say it in writing and send the family a letter, I think is much better than kind of trying to come up on the spot. And if they say they wanted some donating to charities, I think that is certainly helpful too. What I hope you take from this is just some tips to think about. It's a great thing that you are going and showing your love to the family. It is nothing to be ashamed of. There is no right or wrong. This is just some perspective. I'm sure people could say, well, I wouldn't do it in this. Absolutely. There's different situations call for different things. But at least to give you some context, hopefully you got something out of this just to give you some comfort. Because, I know that if someone... The people who passed, I do remember the people who came to the funeral. And I remember afterwards talking, you saw so-and-so? It was really nice for them to come and show that respect. And so showing up is what it's all about, to be there. And if you're watching this and going to the funeral, let me close by saying I'm very sorry for the loss in your life. And I hope that this has helped in just a small way as you think about your attendance at that funeral. All the best from the Hearse Chaser.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Please remember, you can't outrun a hearse, but you can leave your family with a smooth ride.